we need what we are passionate about to sustain us and to help keep us alive and to make us feel so alive. So this is what music is for me. Greetings and welcome to the Compromise to Alchemized podcast with me, your host, Dr. Neil Bulchandani. I have the pleasure of interviewing artists, healers, thought leaders, all kinds of people on this podcast. And in the past, I have done solo episodes. But you know what? This is different. I'm, in one sense, interviewing myself. In another sense, I'm sharing from a certain place of certainty and um, gratitude for what has already happened in this month. This is this week's episode. And on this episode, I get to talk about psychoneuroimmunomusicology, a term that I first wrote down back in 2009, actually. So we're talking, 17 years, 17 years ago. There's a big key with the number 17 right now. It's how many years I've been a chiropractor. That's how many years the New Calm company has put its healing waves out there, which I am now part of with my tracks that launched last month. Phase shift is what they're called. It's also, a number that I had on my high school soccer jersey, and it was a number that I felt was very significant for a while. So it's a number, and numbers are just really fun when we look at meaning. My name, for example, I think I said this in a podcast interview recently with Michael Gunger. It means 10 billion. And you might be hearing Smokeless Fire right now. I haven't decided. I think I will. Yeah, I think that'll be fun. So, yeah, it's extemporaneous, spontaneous. Speaking of that, I'm calling myself out. I did it in the flow on Michael Gunger's podcast, the interview that I did with him. In the middle, I was so thankful for that conversation. I have had a conversation yesterday with Amy Albright. She is the amazing, multifaceted healer. And also, I've interviewed her on the podcast. She is co-curator of the Hold On Experience. Oh my gosh. We had time yesterday to collaborate in person. We're going to be doing more. But yeah, I feel like finding people like this, friends, I get to call them, who reveal more of who I am, because they are not just mirrors and they're not just great at affirming. They draw out the strength. So, it's so funny. I was hearing somebody else talk about spoken word. Oh, and fittingly, I am going to, in a little bit here, I am 15. Well, it's a little bit more than that, but just over 20 minutes away from where the Goop podcast is having live in Los Angeles. I'm reading it with Gwyneth Paltrow and Benny Blanco. I will be headed there. So it's at One Hotel West Hollywood, and it is going to be fun. So I was listening to an episode that Benny did, and he was talking with somebody else. And so Benny is obviously a producer, music, and somebody else that was interviewing him was talking about how he both of them thought they were going to be like hip hop artists, and then they weren't. So I've always thought I would be involved in music. I've been a singer. I've been a barbershop quartet singer. I have been in musicals. I have written songs. But you know what? Right now, I'm calling myself out to do some spoken word, because what is Compromise to Alchemize? It is when the sun rises. It is when we do not fail, when we are not frail, when we hold ourselves accountable to a standard that is not substandard. It is not a submarine that we sink to. It is not plankton. It is not seaweed. It's not kelp. It's not nutrition. It's not just chlorophyll that suffuses our body like plants that get innervated by the sunlight that hits us with our mitochondria that suffuses our soul. It is not just cell by cell communication. It is not a functional diaphragm that makes us walk around like a steam engine that can't punk out. It is not a funk zone that Santa Barbara is known for. It is not the ocean that can't be there for us when we need ground beneath our feet that keeps us afloat. It is not waves that cover us. It is not any of those things. It is better than that. It is oneness. It is the collective consciousness that we need, we have, and we can arrive at if we only look at ourselves in the mirror, without the mirror, and look at ourselves in our eyes and see that we are more than we surmise. And we can surprise ourselves if only we believe. If only we believe that we are more than who we are, that we are all of us, and that we are in the way of ourselves so much. So if we can just get out of our way and flatten ourselves to the floor, and even like Flat Stanley, like this kid's book character that my kids read about and that we chuckle about, if we could just throw a knuckleball so that we could trick the batter, so that we can not get hit out of the park, so that we can land ourselves at home plate, home base, grounded, nervous system regulated, without any fear that we will not be frustrated, that we will be found, fulfilled, sealed, and delivered, that we will be healed like a seal that waves crash over. They do not fear. They look at that wave and they say, "Here I am. Rock you like a hurricane," Michael Gunner. That's a shout out to you. Here I am. Rock you like a hurricane. There we go. 6:33. That's the seconds righteousness calls. I think I'm going to release that. And we're going to talk about more than that. Psychoneuroimmunology, way more than just sound, way more than just healing. Yeah, we're going to get into that. So stay tuned for this episode because I'll be here for it. Just you and me.
How would I like to play? What would you like to say? Hey, have we had enough war
Earlier
yet?
today, I was just in the phone call with Eric Galindo. Dr. Eric Galindo, pediatrician, he was asking me questions. I wanted to get on with him to talk about it. I wanted to talk to Amy Albright yesterday on a podcast. And you know what? They want to. I'm getting excited because tomorrow I'm going to interview Dr. Shamini Jain. She is a leader in the expert of one of the experts of psychoneuroimmunology, the consciousness healing initiative. Brilliant, brilliant. Scientist, researcher, healer, and musician. And then we have, just Tina Rocaria, Airway Dentist Dubai. We've got some people up, um, but you know, I will tell you that I get most excited about interviewing other people. I want that conversation to be nourishing to you all. And you heard what I just said. I put myself out there. I've got some creativity flowing through me, and I excited to share it. So, and you know what? That's the main thing here. Is expression needs to be the outflow because it creates an inflow, and I have definitely not shared as much in that capacity over the years, but I'm excited because that's what's coming. So the Compromised Alchemized is about this nonlinear journey of healing that brings us from suffering or struggle to gold, integrated healing, just together, collected. I feel that we need that. The bread of, well, I was going to say the breath of, or the BREDTH and the breath and the bread. Let's just call it all. We need this sustenance. I feel when my wife Dawn and I are in a flow and we're talking and we're hearing and sharing, it's like the best. And then with when I have those around me, good friends, been texting, people, Brent Deshaw, Ed Gricius, there's others out there, right? Michael Nauer. I mean, I've been so excited. My brother Arun, and I've been you know let's just say family, friends, the circle. The circle of life, right? We need these people. Um, and this is more important than a long word like psychoneuroimmunomusicology. I've also, heard about, acoustic psychoneurobiology, psychoneurobiology, these words. But psychoneuroimmunology has been a word that's existed for some time. There have been a lot of pioneers in this. In fact, Bruce Lipton came to speak to us. The Biology of Belief is his book that he wrote. That was pretty forerunning. He came to speak to us at Palmer College for chiropractic my first year, homecoming. So it's like the beginning of the lyceum, actually, technically, the beginning of the whole experience back in 2005, 21 years ago. Crazy. So it was then that I felt, wow, I'm impressed by what he knows. I'm impressed by how he talked about grounding and the importance of it from a scientific basis. Then, I had been involved in consciousness studies and um, delving into experientially, wading in those waters as well as learning about it. Out the other end, after many years of working within the airway and feeding world, somatic transformational body work and manual therapy, and I've begun to wade again in those waters on a very like intentional level. And what I'm talking about with psychoneuroimmunomusicology is a word that I wrote, scrawled in cursive many times back 17 years ago. And with my work with two neuroacoustic companies, Sound Health being one of them, Newcom being the other one, there's a couple other that I've been involved in, but not to that level. And they're very, very avant-garde in terms of how they use technology, harnessing it, but honoring the principles that have come before us with sound. We all have vocal cords. Um, there's so much to look at when we talk about how sound informs us and how sound is so important. The words. I was just with here in Sherman Oaks in Ina Henry's office. She's a lactation consultant. That I was, using her office for the day here to see babies and moms. And one mom, Maisie, she had her baby in, and just hearing the way that a mom talks to a baby, that we can talk to a baby, that we can share words and it's more than just the sound, it's the tones, it's more than just frequencies, it's connection. And so while I have a lot to say, this is not my thesis on this topic. This is merely a primer for what I will be exploring in terms of sharing about a lot more, because I am involved in some personally led research into this field that I am calling psychoneuroimmunomusicology because while I feel like there's a beautiful emphasis that has been out there on acoustics, John Stewart Reed is such a remarkable pioneer in creating the cymoscope in the field of cymatics. I'm going to be talking about that here with um, Brooke McPoyle from Musical Breathwork. Coming up in the fall. Um, and sound has its place within my practice, not just the technologies that I talked about, although they're epic in their own right, um, but sound. And in fact, I'm a person of many names and words, and I don't know if you know me from back in high school. Besides me loving the number 17, there's this song "Fountains of Wayne." You know, there's a band called Fountains of Wayne. Actually, Ed, uh, me and Ed have sang that album many times, and then Stephanie George is another person. But there's a line in that song that says there's 17 different words for snow. I think it's Eskimo. I don't know. Anyways, there's I really love words and names and um, you know I think that's evidenced in how my wife Dawn and I have named our children. Um, and Serenity, Cypress, and Zephyr. We put a lot of intent into like aligning you know their lives with those names, and it's important. So, when I created this technique called stomatognathing oscillatory fascial touch, it's the soft technique. And it still lives in some ways, but the stomatognathic is about the airway and the jaw. The oscillatory is about these quick movements that free up frozen tissues, like fascial release. Fascial is fascial. We all know that. And touch. But in there, sound has one of the core tenets of that system is sound. Um, Now it lives today in my technique, my system called functional mandibular diaphragmatic integration. The floor four and functional diaphragmatic mandibular integration. Those are I think I reversed it. Functional mandibular diaphragmatic integration. Those are my front-facing techniques and systems that I've concretely landed on that I am now putting out there into the world. So teaching teachers, um, scaling systems. I'm excited for what's going on with those things. Again, that's been the emphasis and the majority of my focus um, for about 10 years. It's 7 years in chiropractic and then 10 years in airway feeding, and then now emerging from that with this realization. Dipping back into my pre and perinatal psychology studies, dipping into my consciousness studies, sound, light. Well, um, music is way more than any of that if we're just talking about having fun. Like, who doesn't, for the most part, have a song they love, sway to a song, dance to a song, move their bodies to the rhythm? It's something that we all do. And I do love the simple sounds of wind. I do love the bird sounds, just hearing birds chirp. I love all those things, and they're really great muses because it's so nice that we don't have to put on music that someone created to enjoy music. However, there is something beautiful about really well composed music, pieces of music. I do feel excited about that. I feel excited about not just spoken word, but you know, music making, singing. Singing is a huge part of who I am. It's kind of the way that I say that, breath work, I enjoy the fact that it does help us breathe well when we can have a practice of breath work. But singing is my favorite form of breath work. Running and being able to run ultra marathons and just running was a beautiful form of practicing breath work. But singing it for me is a long-standing passion. And, for me, we need what we are passionate about to sustain us and to help keep us alive and to make us feel so alive. So this is what music is for me. So the study of music is really where this part is that I'm talking about. Musicology is the study of music. I believe that if we study music, we understand so much of the psychoneuroimmunology part. However, there is something when you bridge intention, when you bridge the study of music with the study of how much the psyche informs the brain and our neurology, and in where that informs the gut, the enteric nervous system. And I believe with the bridge that I have made of my airway map and the floor four, they've codified a framework of our body. It's not just about tongue tie, it's not just about narrow palate, pharyngeal arch formation issues. That's why my airway map is called the PAFI map now, pharyngeal arch formation issue map. All that's fine and good, but we are compressed by the torsional depth that tongue tie causes, and narrow palate and TMJ, and all these things that we could say, even if we don't know if we have that or not, or if it's significant or not. These issues, these symptoms, we can be compressed and bound up. But when we're decompressed, when we find those things that help us free from that axial loading, that compressed spring, and we get decompressed, that's what phase shift is. And it's a very specific, it's really simple system that unlocks us and brings us into this widespread cascade effect that creates this. like a dopamine effect, but more where we get into this supple state where our brain shifts and our body turns to butter in those tense tight places, and the hypotonic weak places in our mouth and beyond, hypermobile areas, strengthen, edify, and bring strength and scaffolding within us. Tensegrity, right? So um, all of this is fine and good. And I really feel we need this work into the world. This is why I'm putting it out there. Um, but what we need beyond that is just for this to be braided into our lives every day. And I think that's happening. And I think that musicology, or studying music, studying sound, studying the way that sound moves us, the way that we emit sound every day, the way that we all have a soundtrack to our lives, and hopefully it's a hope-filled one. And I love it when we can enjoy the soundtrack of our lives. Well, it's it's a beautiful thing. And then again, we need all the emotions. We need to be able to express the grief, express the anger, express the sadness, express the ecstasis. We need the full complexion of music that defines us. And I do think there are keys in that that actually inform our psyche, that inform our neurology, that inform our gut. But immune system isn't just the gut. It's the ability of our body to be whole, integrated. All of our seemingly disparate parts of ourselves, and that is so complex, right? But it's we know it when we're in union with ourselves, when we're in touch with the core within, the self within, source, God. Like we know when we're you know connected. So it's really that's really the essence of this. um so I why am I really excited to have a conversation with Amy Albright soon? Because she's waded these waters for so long, and a lot of what I'm talking about in terms of consciousness, in terms of architecting our reality so that we can live in this coherence, uh, is really masterful at helping people with that. I received that help. Then we go to um, some like Dean Radin, or talking about you know gifts and abilities and telepathic and e- consciousness studies there, and there's many others that we can mention, but Shamini Jain is one we have to mention, and this is why I'm excited to interview her, because and then there's others too who have poured over the the study of psychoneuroimmunology. Um, and I think that all of that is where we can now come into this time of collecting all these resources so that we can build a library, build an album, so to speak, where we can resource and we can have a way that we can all lend healing to one another. And this is what it is. I mean, I know this is a free flowing conversation, but I want to make sure that I'm conveying, like, this is a passion, and expression, passion, integration. You know, there's all those things that are involved in like seeing our lives fulfilled. And mm, yeah, there's another word I was going for. Uh, it'll come to me. But if we could really collect and unify, and I feel out of this place of unification that I'm in right now, I see so clearly what I am to do. Personal legend, right? So the universe conspires in your favor when you are in pursuit of your personal legend. I've alluded to how this, what I'm talking about now, is part of that. And so, if anything, this is an aspirational provocation to search out what is it that you aspire towards, what is it that inspires you, and what is it that is in your legend, what is it that, and legend doesn't mean this like bragging, epic, flashy, showy thing. It's just a story, but it's a story of your life, and that involves your dream, and it also involves a follow through. So, um, the witness of y'all listening is part of the follow through here. So, is today the first installment? Yes, I have much more to share and unfold. This isn't part of a series. This is just going to come through conversations with others, and then I'll come back at another time in the future here where I'll share more on this field of psychoneuroimmunomusicology, more on what I've collected and what I'll collect and what I'll gather and what I'll um, hub together, and um, and I'm excited for that. So, but more than that, I'm excited for what's coming, for what's ahead with the next several who are coming on. I'll be in Infinity, Neuromotor, with Josh Madsen and his whole team this Friday, Saturday, Sunday in Iowa with the offices from Denver, Minnesota flying out so that I can relay and share and teach the floor four. I've got other ones coming up. I'll be um, doing a lot more coming up, but the Naboso Summit, Emily Splickle, the amazing holistic functional podiatrist, barefoot movement expert, and more. Uh, I'll be speaking at that summit, leading people in movement, things like that. So bringing in more of these elements that I'm talking about now, so that we can um, mix my craft and the expertise that I've developed over these years with passion, which also has a craft within it that I've cultivated. So, okay, that is my transmission and transmission. Begin your lives. Reach out to me. Tell me how you enjoy this.
Thank you for listening to the Compromised to Alchemized podcast. Really excited to thank Jessica from Lunalux for the music, this track called Major. I want to thank Toshi, who originally did the design work for my cover art. And then I also want to thank Alyssa from my team for podcast publishing, my whole team, including Kat, for heading up my world. And then also definitely want you all to follow me on YouTube, follow the podcast on Spotify or Apple or wherever you get your podcast, comment, give us a rating, and also follow me on Instagram at Dr. Neil Bulchandani so you can stay tuned to my latest. Thanks so much, and you have an amazing day. This is Major.